West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Tonight, no signs of slowing down. Jack Smith, the newly named special counsel in the Trump investigations, is already reviewing and approving all the filings related to a key court hearing tomorrow. The hearing is related to the Mar-a-Lago classified documents criminal case. Our Caitlin Polans and Evan Perez also reporting tonight that prosecutors who will work under Smith haven't made major changes to their schedule in the next few weeks, which is when they were scheduled already to take witness testimony to collect documents under subpoena. One source saying, quote, the grand jury doesn't seem to have skipped a beat. This is a growing number of former top legal officials say that President Trump is headed for indictment.
At the end of the day, I expect that Donald Trump will be indicted by this special counsel.
I personally think that they probably have the basis for legitimately indicting the president.
Out front now, Ryan Goodman, former special counsel of the Department of Defense and co-editor-in-chief of the Just Security blog. And obviously, you and your colleagues just put out a 169-page sort of charging document and very clearly showing why you think indictment is appropriate in the Mar-a-Lago case. And there was worry, right? 72 hours ago, there was worry that appointing a special counsel for both the Mar-a-Lago case and the January 6th criminal case investigations would slow the whole thing down, slow roll the whole thing. We're 72 hours later. He's been briefed on everything. He's approving everything. The hearing's going ahead tomorrow. Evan and Caitlin are reporting that nothing's changed on the schedule. Nothing's been slowed down, it appears, thus far. So what are you seeing now?
So the reporting is consistent with his reputation, that he is this kind of a dogged prosecutor who's very quick and efficient. He's a triathlete in his other life, but it seems as though that's kind of an attitude that he takes to the work. And I do think that there were concerns before Garland's decision that it could slow things down in the abstract, having a special counsel, but the person is so important in the equation, and he's the kind of person that has obviously hit the ground running.
So it certainly seems that way. So now tomorrow's briefing, right? Jack Smith is now fully briefed on that, right? As I just said, approved everything, all the documents were ready. He certainly didn't get in and goes, hold on, let me wait a couple days while I read through it. No, boom, 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 we're going ahead. This hearing is about the document review of the Mar-a-Lago documents, right, that the special master is supposed to go through. That's what the hearing is regarding. And you believe that this hearing could be very telling at this point. How come?
So I think it could be telling in a certain sense the government's position is very strong. There's almost like a menu of choices that the 11th Circuit has to uphold the government's case and then just allow them to proceed ahead and have Jack Smith have all of the evidence that was collected in the FBI search. I also think it's telling in other ways. The government is sticking with the same argument that they've had before, that there's no evidence of declassification of these documents, which is telling because they've now interviewed Kash Patel, who is the only person out there in the world who has said, other than Donald Trump, that he declassified material The fact that they're still sticking to that argument post having Kash Patel before the grand jury, I think is a tell that they're pretty confident about that idea.
All right, so in terms of where it goes from here, this whole, okay, well, they clearly seem to have enough on the Mar-a-Lago case if they want to indict to do so. Then you've got January 6th as separate from that and more involved. From what you know about Jack Smith, when do you think we know?
I think we might have something very significant within the next couple months on Mar-a-Lago. I do think that is a basis of facts that already provides for an indictment. So I think he's obviously somebody who's not going to slow down in that determination. And the big question is, does he move forward with one case if he feels like he has enough for an indictment, or does he wait for the other, which is the January 6th materials? And that could be a much more complex
And then you
process.
wait for both.
Right.
Right, which of course then you have to run the risk of, leaks and people know what you have in the first one, so there's risk there too. But fascinating. All right, Ryan, thank you very much.
I'm joined now by Harvard Law School professor Lawrence Tribe. He's also the co-author of To End a Presidency, The Power of Impeachment. Professor, great to see you tonight. We haven't had a chance to talk to you. What's your reaction to the appointment of the special counsel by the Attorney General?
I think it was the right move, although I had urged doing this many months ago in March. But more recently, I thought that because Merrick Garland was apparently not really ready to proceed, that he ought to pull things together and bring indictments. The evidence was clear enough, and I thought appointing a special counsel might delay things. He's clearly found a special counsel who won't delay a thing. He's hitting the ground running. He clearly has enormous experience. He's come right off of the war crimes trials that he's handling in Kosovo. He's been in charge of political corruption trials. He's battle-hardened. He's absolutely ready. And Garland emphasized the need for speed. He's clearly not come back from The Hague in order to preside over the winding up of an unsuccessful investigation. The marching orders he has are to conclude things as quickly as possible, and I take that to mean a very likely set of indictments arising both out of Mar-a-Lago and the attempt to overturn the election.
Well, how complicated would it be, practically speaking, to bring indictments against a former president running for president, and to do it in a timely enough fashion that some aspect of the case wouldn't be bumping right up against a presidential election?
Well, the sooner the better, because the delays that are bound to be part of the former president's strategy will make it bump up against the election. But Merrick Garland is not going to let that deter him at all. He's made that clear. The fact that we have someone who thinks he can protect himself by claiming that he wants to be president, that's all fine. But it's not up to him. Interestingly, he said he doesn't intend to participate in the work of the special counsel. Well, that's nice. No one's asking him. It's not up to him. The special counsel has very broad power. The ultimate decision of whether and when to indict and for which of the many available charges is going to be up to Merrick Garland. But while he's running the entire Justice Department with 115,000 employees, hundreds of investigations all over the world, Garland can't be the person to handle the day-to-day decisions in this investigation and the prosecutions to which it will lead. And they don't need to be run up the totem pole through the bureaucracy of the Department of Justice, because the marching orders of this special counsel are to reach a conclusion as expeditiously and fairly as possible, put it on the Attorney General's desk. The Attorney General, I think, will look at it and have every reason to approve it. So I'm looking at the trials.
You brought up what the former president said. He would not partake in the investigation. Obviously, that isn't his choice. I mean, he is presumably the subject of this investigation, as is quite clear now by the appointment of a special counsel. What do you think his legal strategy will be going forward?
Delay, delay, and delay. That's all he's got going for him. I don't think he has any good defenses. At one point, he said he was going to defend against the charges of mishandling the top secret information by saying that it was no longer top secret. He had thought that he declassified it just by thinking that it was declassified. The telepathy defense, that's not going to get him anywhere. And with respect to the attempt to obstruct the transfer of power to President Biden leading up to the violent insurrection, originally, I think he was going to say, I didn't have much to do with it, I just made a speech. But now we know, as a result of the extraordinary work of the January 6th committee and a great deal else, we know that he was right in the middle of it. He was receiving all of the information. He was encouraging them to be violent at the Capitol. He was basically abandoning his own vice president to the gallows. There really is no good defense for any of it. The only reason he hasn't already been indicted is that Garland is trying, and I know he's always meticulous. When he was my student, he was extremely careful 50 years ago, 45 years ago, I guess. Anyway, he's trying to dot every I, cross every T, and now with the special counsel, I think he's got someone who is going to carry that out, and we'll see.
It is Tuesday, the 22nd of November of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. Not Randy Weingarten, Hungarian, hot smoked Hungarian paprika. Okay, Mike Pompeo, he lost some weight. Okay, that's good for him. Good for him. But it certainly didn't, he didn't lose any of his fascism. Let's put it that way. In fact, I think he might have distilled it into a toxic stew. Yeah, well, this is what we have arrayed against us. They call it Trumpism. It's not Trumpism. It's the same old goose-stepping Nazi fascism that we all have known and have attempted to keep from being memory hold. Good on Rachel Maddow with her Ultra podcasts. Because that's not very long ago when we had the Nazi trials, and it looks like the complicit Nazis in our government, we call them insurgents, by the way. Okay. Once an insurrection moves into the realm of the electeds, it is then an insurgency. By definition. Now, I'm not making it up. So we had insurgents then, and we have insurgents now, and we have an insurgent by the name of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Is she going to keep the Greene part? Who will apparently, whether she's actually chair or not, I don't think she's going to be the chair, but there were concessions made to her so that McCarthy could get her vote. Yeah, well, we are, all of us, acting like it's a foregone conclusion that McCarthy will get the speakership, and any deals he brokered, will they then be taken up with whoever the new speaker is going to be? Is that how it works on that side? I don't know. But I can assure you, I'm not saying let's keep McCarthy, okay? But what I can assure you on is that as bad as McCarthy is, they're going to come up with somebody worse. They always do. I mean, geez. Think about if we had actually had Pence take over. Okay? I'm just telling you. Back in the day, we all sort of looked at Pence like, he's being rather sly there. He's waiting for the big guy to keel over or something. Because he was ready to step in, and he is a Christo-fascist. He worked for the tobacco company. He's a shill. He was a shill for big tobacco, and he's got that smooth style. So quiet. Seems so reflective. There's nothing going on in the brain. Except, I don't know. I could simplify it and just say, except for Christo-fascism. Which, I got to tell you, is a lot. So we have Pompeo putting a target on Randy Weingarten. Not Putin. Not the guy in North Korea. Not even, I don't know, just it's the most dangerous person in the world is Randy Weingarten. Because teacher unions and teachers are teaching our kids swill. Oh, really? Swill, you say? All right, well, that's what you expect a stiff-armed, goose-stepping Nazi to say. Especially after they put a target on Randy Weingarten's back and front. All right. Well, the Army major, 2 Bronze Stars, by the way, in tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. The right wing has already greased their gears, and the wheels are turning. They're going after him. I saw Jack Probiak. You know who I'm talking about. He's a Nazi. I'm sorry. I kind of throw that around a lot, but he is. And known to work rather closely with Russia. So we have all these agents, all these assets, all these stooges doing this work. And I got to tell you, they are free actors. It's not just the Cyrillic writing nations that they are, I don't know, doing a little bit of work for us, but whoever pays. And that could be anybody, even our friends. Anyway, I saw that he put out a little tweet saying, shouldn't people be talking about how a U.S. Army major took his family to a drag show? Should we be speaking about it? Should we be speaking about when you, Jack, go out for a night on the town and you order, I don't know, are you still into Cosmopolitans? Is he still drinking the Cosmopolitans? I don't know. There's a lot of things that people do that no one ever talks about because it is normal and they want to make it abnormal, put targets on people's back for what? All right. And we allow it because, they have free speech. There can also be public shaming, right? Isn't that what they are doing? They're taking a group of people, and it happens to be the LGBTQ community, and they are going to pillory them and dehumanize them, and when these murders happen, they gleefully move on to the next. What can we foment next? We really kicked the libs this time. Look at them. Yeah, and this lady at Libs of TikTok. Now that is a terrorist organization. It's no better than that Rwandan radio station that fomented a genocide. They went after anybody who didn't agree with their genocide. And that's what Libs of TikTok is doing. Oh, but we have to allow it because it's free speech. No. We don't have to allow it. But we do have petulant little choir boys from Lord of the Flies by the name of Jack. Except in this case it's Ellen. Space Karen. That's what everybody's calling him now. Space Karen. Who is a crass and coarse individual at heart. I guess being the heir to an apartheid blood emerald fortune will do that to you. I keep telling you, I'm going to beat that horse for a long time. I love it. I've been waiting for that Soros money that they all said we were going to get back when we were divesting from the Krugerrand, and this guy grew up on the blood of those who backed the Krugerrand, ultimately. And he's so cruel to those people. Those people. And we wonder why. Oh, he's just so immature. No, he's a bigot racist. Give me a break. Oh, I know he's purported to have risen above it. But yeah, where's the proof? It's not what the workers of color say at the San Leandro plant at Tesla. For Tesla. I'm just saying. The old owners didn't treat their employees like that. Musk comes in and says, we're doing it my way, and I'm carrying a sink. Oh, I did read that maybe that was what the message was when he carried the sink in, because he's going to make a Twitter go down the drain of the sink. Maybe that's why. I don't know. That much money is, I think, God's way of saying that they are going to hell. The problem is they want to make hell on earth. And we have to live in it. We plebes. We serfs. This is what it feels like. This guy's beyond the landed gentry. He's supposed to be our royal. Oh, we have to genuflect to the royal. Anybody who says anything bad to him will be ultimately banned. And then they complain that they're being canceled. Anybody who says they're whining about cancel culture wants to cancel everything out except for their stiff-armed, goose-stepping you-know-what. Do I sound angry? Do I sound peeved? I am. It really bugs me. They're going after the Army major. A hero. I know the defense is going to be that how did they know that this guy was, he was defending himself. Look what happened. They beat him to a pulp. He's going to do the Rittenhouse defense. I keep telling everybody. Guy's wearing body armor, too. Over 300 pounds. The brewer said that he's 300 pounds, and this guy was bigger. 22. The Ring camera security photo purportedly of the fellow with the same name. They're still trying to put things together because I think the guy might be kind of beat to a crap still. But anyway, a fellow by the same name who had a SWAT team confrontation when he threatened to blow his mom up with a bomb, and then the red flag laws were triggered, but the sheriff there said we're not enforcing any red flag laws because it's an infringement on a constitutional right to beat your wife, I guess, or your mom. And so they sealed the file, right, all of that. I got to tell you, the person in the Ring camera photo looks like a fairly large individual, tall and wide. But anyway, this Army major, who is a brewer, and his wife is the brew master, and they run a brewery there in town, is an award-winning pub brewer. And it's funny, I haven't been in the brew award culture for a while. I know what I like, but I actually heard of the award-winning Dolores Huerta Mexican lager that they brew. So they have a merchandise at their pub that one can purchase things online. It maybe might be a good idea to do that. Though I must say this fellow is a good-hearted individual, and the right-wing Nazis hate that. That's why I say we can't appeal to these. I'm just going to shorten it. Okay, they're Nazis, maggot Nazis. You can't appeal to their feelings. It does not work. It never has. You're going to be stabbed in the back if they don't just stab you in the front first. As history is my guide, I'm just saying. All right? And I'm not just relegating it to what happened during WW2. I'm talking about what happened in Portland in the 70s. I'm talking about what happened in Idaho through the 80s and the 90s happening now. And what the hell is happening now? Oh, my. We do have a curated show for you. But I just want to finish up here. about the Army Major and their brew pub, and please do, visit this fellow's and his wife's merchandise and their store, and maybe, I don't know, might be kind of fun to make a trek and sit down and have a pint or two. It sounds like fun there. But anyway, this guy got out of the war scene because he had enough. And he had to come back. And he's right back in the war scene. So they're going after him because it's like the rest of us. We actually believe in due process and equal protection for all. ALL. Not everybody but a few that we don't like. Or, everybody is a few and everybody else is a majority we don't like. No, it's for all. Which means that if one commits a crime, no matter your station in life, the due process clause has to apply. Because it certainly has applied to us plebes, we serfs. All right, well, I don't know where I'm going with it. Do we have a solution for the Elon Musk effect? I think it's part of a whole. Destroy the number one communicative device that democratically involved pretty much the world. Get rid of it. Sounds Teutonic to me. Anyway, what do we have in store for you for the rest of the show? Well, yes, at the top, Special Counsel Jack Smith is getting to work with no signs that the two investigations he oversees around Donald Trump will slow down. And we know that. And he's a triathlete and recovering from a bicycle accident in Amsterdam. My gosh. On the rest of the menu, the Virginia Military Institute's first black superintendent is under attack by conservative white alumni. Well, you would expect that at VMI. I'm just letting history be my guide. When it became clear Sandy Hook families would prevail in court, Alex Jones started moving his money around. Will he get away with it? I wonder. And a Georgia appeals court declined to halt Saturday early runoff voting between Walker and Warnock. And that was a big loss for the GOP. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where auditors in Iraq have uncovered a staggering $2.5 billion tax fraud scheme. And Australia ratified bilateral free trade deals with India and Britain. And they're thumbing their nose at Russia, as well they should. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page, is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by the Kelly Lincoln, who does so much more than just monitor the chat room. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page from that chat room link is the link to our Patreon page, and become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio will help us pay our bills, so please help us. and let us continue being the bulwark against this, well, a small bulwark against this right-wing takeover of everything in the world. We don't want it. And thank you for helping us resist. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send us those funds once a month, it really does help us pay our bills, all kidding aside. And, of course, I got to tell you, the bills keep going up. Thank you for your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that and a lot more too. So thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam while we still have Twitter. And I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos 10 minutes before showtime. So you can read the full articles by the reporters, the journalists who have actually written the articles, without my little humorous take or sly, cynical one. Anyway, the show notes and links diaries can be found by following me on Twitter because the links are there. Yes, they are. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. All right. I'm going to start a company called etc., etc., etc. Maybe there's already one, but you might get quite a bit of business doing that, one would think. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by Ian Shapira from the Washington Post. Ever since Virginia Military Institute began rolling out new diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives last year, oh, you mean woke? A fierce and well-funded group of conservative alumni has been attacking the efforts to make VMI more welcoming to women and minorities because they don't like women, and they sure as hell don't like minorities. Now, the mostly white alumni group, I'm shocked, white, has turned its sights on a new target. The first black superintendent at the nation's oldest state-supported military college. Some alumni have raised questions about what VMI is paying retired Army Major General Cedric T. Wins, while others have called for him to be fired. Suggestions that have outraged his supporters, and why wouldn't it be outrageous? Wins, age 59, who graduated from VMI in 1985 after starring on the basketball team, was chosen to lead the college 2 years ago amid a state-ordered investigation into, they say, alleged racism. But you know it was not alleged. Anyway, on the Lexington, Virginia campus, the investigation concluded that VMI has long tolerated a racist and sexist culture and must change. But at a school where cadets fought and died for the Confederacy, resistance to change was immediate and intense. Oh no, it's a Northern War of aggression upon their vaunted values. This is about a bunch of rich older white guys who are losing power, said Chuck Rogerson, age 61, a white retired Army colonel who roomed with Wins during their 4 years together at VMI. They can't handle the change because they've never had to deal with it before. A man of color leading the institute. Did they ever question prior superintendent salaries? Whatever they're paying Wins, they ought to pay double, given all that crap he's dealing with. Now that is the way a military person speaks. This month, a political action committee called the Spirit of VMI, yeah, I can see their spirit, which represents many of the critics, released a statement questioning why VMI's Board of Visitors awarded a $100,000 bonus in September to Wins, who makes an annual salary of $625,000. Last year, Wins received a $25,000 bonus. The PAC asked what performance metrics, or excuse me, maybe I should put it in the proper colloquialisms. Let's see. What performance metrics the board used to make such a generous award and sharp increase? And they cited major concern among our alumni about VMI's direction, especially an alarming 25% drop in enrollment in this year's freshman class. Well, maybe that was because of COVID. Have you thought about that? A lot of people died from it, over 1 million. Then, on November 11th, Douglas Conte, a white member of VMI's class of 1975, appeared on a conservative Richmond talk show to denounce the school's hyper-liberal regime and call on Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin to scrutinize VMI's decisions and decide whether General Wins is the right person for that job. Oh, really? Conte declined an interview with the Washington Post because they never do. Through a VMI spokesman, Wynn declined to address the attacks on his pay and tenure. Jonathan O'Connell of the Washington Post brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Alex Jones was losing in court. Parents of children killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School had sued him and his media company for defamation after he repeatedly claimed the 2012 massacre in Connecticut was a hoax. Fans of the InfoWars host had harassed and threatened grieving families. By the summer of 2020, 2 of the lawsuits were not going his way. As the potential for damages mounted, Jones began moving millions of dollars out of his company, Free Speech Systems, and into companies controlled by himself, friends, or relatives, according to a Washington Post review of financial statements, depositions, and other court records. The transfers potentially put those funds out of reach of the Sandy Hook plaintiffs. Between August of 2020 and November of 2021, Free Speech Systems signed promissory notes, essentially IOUs, for $55 million to cover what it said were past debts to a company called PQPR Holdings that Jones owns with his parents, according to financial records filed in court by Jones' attorneys. PQPR, which is managed by Jones' father, a dentist, had bought tens of millions of dollars in supplements for Jones that he then sold on his show, the records say. A lawyer for Free Speech Systems has said in court that the deck accrued a notice due to sloppy bookkeeping. And this year, Jones started paying his personal trainer $100,000 a week to help ship supplements and other merchandise, a Free Speech Systems attorney said in court. A company managed by Jones' sister and listed as a supplier or vendor was paid $240,000, financial records show. Courts have awarded the Sandy Hook families nearly $1.5 billion in damages against Jones, including $45.2 million in a Texas case in August and $965 million in a Connecticut case 2 months later. On November 10th, the judge in the Connecticut case ordered Jones to pay an additional $473 million in punitive damages, including $323 million for legal fees. Jones has said on his show that he plans to appeal. The IOUs and other recent transactions helped tip Free Speech Systems into bankruptcy in July, according to Jones' court filings. An accountant hired by Jones calculated the Free Speech Systems had $79 million in liabilities at the end of May and only $14 million in assets. As a result, the Sandy Hook families could be left vying with other creditors, including the companies tied to Jones himself, to collect. Kate Brumback of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Georgia appeals court ruling yesterday, Monday, means that counties can offer early voting this coming Saturday in the U.S. Senate runoff election between Warnock and Walker. The Court of Appeals declined a request by the state to stay a lower court's ruling that said state law allows early voting that day. Republican Secretary of State Raffensperger had told county election officials that early voting could not be held that day because state law says it is illegal on a Saturday if there was a holiday on the Thursday or Friday preceding it. Thursday is Thanksgiving, of course, and Friday is a state holiday. You know why? Because they're honoring a Confederate general. The Saturday following those two holidays is the only possibility for Saturday voting before next month's Senate runoff election between Warnock and Walker. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Thomas Cox on Friday issued an order siding with the Warnock campaign and the Democratic groups. He found that the law cited by the state regarding Saturday voting after a holiday does not apply to a runoff election. Lawyers for the state filed an appeal yesterday, Monday, with the Georgia Court of Appeals. They asked the court to immediately stay the lower court ruling. They argued in a court filing that the ruling was erroneous for procedural reasons, but also that Cox was wrong to consider the runoff a separate type of election rather than a continuation of the general election. In a one-sentence order, the Georgia Court of Appeals declined to stay the lower court ruling. All right, let us now go to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Hi, and welcome to COVID Quickly, a Scientific American podcast series. This is your fast-track update on the COVID pandemic. We bring you up to speed on the science behind the most urgent questions about the virus and the disease. We demystify the research and help you understand what it really means. I'm Tanya Lewis, one of Scientific American's senior health editors. Josh is taking the week off. Today I'm going to talk about how the antiviral Paxlovid may protect against long COVID, and what we know about the effectiveness of the new booster shots. We've talked a lot about long COVID on this show. Lingering symptoms such as fatigue, brain fog, headache, difficulty breathing, etc. But so far, there haven't been many effective ways of preventing it. Vaccination provides some protection, but the only way to totally reduce the risk is avoiding COVID altogether. But there's some promising news. A recent preprint study of COVID patients with at least one risk factor for severe disease found that those who took the antiviral Paxlovid had a 26% lower chance of developing long COVID symptoms 3 months later, compared with the control group. There were 9,000 patients in the Paxlovid group and about 47,000 in the control group. Those in the Paxlovid group had a lower risk of 10 out of 12 long COVID symptoms. These include an abnormal heart rhythm, ischemic heart disease, pulmonary embolism, deep vein thrombosis, fatigue, liver disease, muscle pain, diabetes, and cognitive impairment. And the protective effect was seen in people who were vaccinated, boosted, or unvaccinated. But Paxlovid had another positive effect. It reduced the risk of death or hospitalization even beyond the acute phase of COVID. Patients were 48% less likely to die and 30% less likely to be hospitalized. We know from previous studies, including one by the researcher who led this study, Ziad Al-Ali at the Veterans Affairs St. Louis Healthcare System, that people who've had COVID are at an increased risk of heart problems for up to a year after getting sick, even after a mild case. Paxlovid could reduce that risk. Of course, the new study results still need to be replicated in other studies and populations. But if Paxlovid is one more tool in our toolbox for fighting long COVID, that's a good thing. There's some more good news on the vaccine front. We've been waiting for data on how well the new bivalent booster shots work against Omicron. While we still don't have definitive data, a number of studies have shown that the shots work better than the original vaccine against the newer variants of SARS-CoV-2 that are currently circulating. Both Pfizer and Moderna recently announced that their vaccines produced substantial levels of neutralizing antibodies against the BA4 and BA5 Omicron subvariants. Moderna says its vaccine provided some protection against a rapidly gaining variant called BQ1.1, but the numbers were too small to draw strong conclusions. We still haven't seen the actual data, just press releases. And showing that the vaccines generated strong antibodies is not the same as showing that they protected against actual infection or severe disease. But it is a sign that the vaccines are supercharging our immune systems to respond to the virus. The Pfizer and Moderna results are in line with a number of preprint studies. Suthar et al. At Emory University found that the bivalent boosters led to a 4-fold increase in neutralizing antibodies against BA5 versus to the original vaccine, and a 10-fold increase against BQ1.1. Schur et al. Found a 3-fold increase against BA5, but not much of a difference against BQ1.1. A handful of other studies found no difference between the new bivalent booster and the original vaccine. But we know the original vaccine still provides pretty good protection against severe disease and death. All of this suggests that getting the new booster shots is a good idea. Sadly, only a small fraction of Americans have gotten the updated shots. We know that the people dying of COVID now tend to be older folks, especially those who are not up to date on their vaccines. There's still time to get your booster, or remind Grandpa to get his ahead of the holidays. But don't delay. Now you're up to speed. Thanks for joining us. Our show is produced by Jeff Del Vicio and Tulika Bose. Come back in 2 weeks for the next episode of COVID Quickly. And check out SciAm.com for updated and in-depth COVID news.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1909. That was the day that a young garment worker by the name of Clara Lemlich made a speech that would have a resounding impact on the labor movement in New York City. Lemlich was at a union meeting where she sat listening to men discuss whether garment workers should call a general strike. Finally, she asked to speak. She said, "I have listened to all of the speakers, and I have no further patience for talk. I am a working girl, one of those striking against intolerable conditions. I am tired of listening to speakers who talk in generalities. What we are here for is to decide whether or not to strike. I make a motion that we go out in a general strike." The female shirtwaist makers were trapped in unskilled, poorly paying jobs. This workforce was more than 70% women, mainly Italian and Jewish immigrants. These bottom-tier workers worked for $3 to $4 per week. Semi-skilled operators earned between $7 and $12 per week. At the top of the hierarchy stood the highly skilled cutters and pattern makers, who in some cases could earn more than $20 a week. The day after Clara's inspiring speech, 15,000 shirtwaist workers walked out of their workplaces. Workers at 339 of the 352 shirtwaist manufacturing companies in New York City went out on strike. It grew and became known as the Uprising of the 20,000. It was the largest strike by women up until that moment in American history. Strikers faced opposition from manufacturers, the police, and the courts. The strike was not settled until February of the following year. Factory owners agreed to meet the workers' demands, including higher pay and shorter hours. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 30 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of about, 58 degrees. Much warmer than yesterday. Mostly cloudy with some showers this afternoon, bringing with it a little less than a quarter of an inch. And winds will be light and variable, and mostly cloudy tonight with lows in the upper 30s. Winds light and variable, and then plenty of sunshine early tomorrow, then clouds mixed later in the day. Highs again around 58. Winds light and variable. Looks like pollen is still rated as none here in the town of Rogue River, Oregon. The air quality index for the region is good at 43 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is low at level 2. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.23 inches. Visibility is at 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 97%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 50 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. Paris is 52 and cloudy. Rome is 55 and mostly cloudy. Kyiv is 29 and cloudy. Kabul is 40 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 75 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 60 degrees and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 55 and clear. San Francisco, California is 48 and sunny, with a small craft advisory on the bay and offshore. And New York, New York is 46 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Qasim Abdul-Zahra and Samia Kulub of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Auditors in Iraq have uncovered a massive scheme in which a network of businesses and officials embezzled some $2.5 billion with a B from the country's tax authority, despite layers of safeguards. The scandal poses an early test for Iraq's new government, which was formed late last month after a prolonged political crisis. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani has vowed to crack down on corruption, but few expect any senior officials or political leaders to be held accountable. Sounds familiar. The scale of the embezzlement, about 2.8% of the 2021 state budget, is remarkable even for an oil-rich country where corruption has been rampant for decades. Transparency International, a global watchdog, rated Iraq 157th out of 180 countries on its 2021 Index for Clean Governance. The auditor's report, obtained by the Associated Press and first reported by The Guardian, suggests the theft was orchestrated by a broad network of officials, civil servants, and businessmen. In Iraq's deeply rooted patronage system, such individuals often have links to powerful political factions. It is a very organized and agreed-upon process of theft, said Jamal al-Assadi, a legal expert and retired judge familiar with corruption cases. 3 officials confirmed details of the scheme to the AP, and of course, none of them want to let anyone know who they are, fearing reprisal. The scheme came to light last month when an internal audit by the Finance Ministry alleged the General Commission for Taxes, Iraq's Internal Revenue Service, had fraudulently paid some 3.7 trillion Iraqi dinars, or around 2.5 billion, to 5 companies. The payments were made through 247 checks cashed between September 9th of 2021 and August 11th of this year from a branch at the state-run Ratified Bank located within the tax commission. The account held billions of dollars in deposits made by companies that were supposed to be returned to them once taxes had been deducted, and the companies had presented updated financial statements. The 5 companies are alleged to have fraudulently drawn refunds without depositing anything.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mais automne, quand les feuilles tombent partout, si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Rod McGurk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Australia's parliament passed bilateral free trade agreements with India and Britain today, leaving those partner nations to bring the deals into force. The deals are crucial for Australia to diversify its exports from the troubled Chinese market to India and to Britain's need to forge new bilateral trade relations since it left the European Union. The bills easily passed the House of Representatives yesterday, Monday, and the Senate made them law today. The deals need to be ratified by the respective British and Indian parliaments before they take effect. Neither nation has done that yet. Trade Minister Don Farrell said India had demonstrated its commitment to the bilateral economic partnership through the quality of the deal struck. Farrell said the British deal was crucial to boosting our growth. Under the Australia-Britain deal, more than 99% of Australian goods exports will be duty-free, including ship meat, beef, dairy, sugar, and wine. Taxes on 90% of Australian goods exported to India, including meat, wool, cotton, seafood, nuts, and avocados, will also be removed. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese discussed the deals with Indian Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Sunak last week on the sidelines of the Group of 20 summit in Indonesia. Albanese said he would visit India in March to advance the deal that was signed in April. The British deal was signed in December by then Prime Minister Boris Johnson's administration and has been criticized by its successors for failing to deliver more for Britain. The deals would come into force 30 days after countries have advised each other in writing that the supporting legislation has been passed by their parliaments. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.